Hi, everybody. Before we get to another great interview, the Two Opinionated podcast could really use your help. And it's easy, it's free. IMDb, which is the entertainment database, imdb.com, named us a top 100 podcast. We came in at number 82. That's a big deal because there's 15 million podcasts and growing. So to be named to anybody's top 100 list, pretty big deal for us. And the way you can help is to go to imdb.com, look up the Two Opinionated podcast, and that's it. Just bringing our page up. That traffic really helps us out. Our YouTube channel is MeisterCon Pod. All we ask is that you subscribe. It's also free, but that really helps us to attract these amazing guests that we keep bringing on the program. And that's it. Two easy ways for you to support us, and we would really appreciate the help. Now let's get to that interview. Hi, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Two Opinionated. I'm so excited today. I've got writer, director, actor Richard Green with me. So welcome, Richard.
How do you do?
Yeah, that's a lot of hats, and I left out like composer, musician. I know you're kind of musical too. I left those out, but that's a lot of hats.
I have a kind of an explanation about all of that. I think that, and this came, you're in West Virginia, right?
Yes, sir.
So either in West Virginia or Virginia, I'm not sure which. My high school English teacher moved there and married a very, very young woman, and they had 8 children.
Oh,
I didn't see him for all those, like 40 years. I didn't see this guy,
yeah.
right? And then he came back to
Well, he was
town.
busy, 8 kids.
He was 8 kids, and teaching, right? And I had a 16-year-old son at that point. He'd been my teacher when I was 16. He changed my life, convinced me that experimental education was the way to go. I quit high school after that year and went to an experimental school. The only diploma that I own in the world is from college. I don't have an elementary, a junior high, high school diploma, but I got a college degree, which is kind of cool. Anyway, so he comes out to visit out back in California. This is 40 years later, and we have a mutual friend, brilliant photographer by the name of Jeffrey Dunas, runs the Palm Springs Photo Festival.
Yeah.
Great books. You might have seen his work. Anyway, Jeffrey calls and says, "Hey, Emmanuel's going to come out, and would you like to have lunch with us? And can you put him up for a couple of days? My studio's full." So I said, "Yeah, I haven't seen him, but yes, he can stay with us, and yes, we'll have lunch." 2 days forward. And I remembered something he said to me when I was leaving high school to go experimental route and travel the world. He said, "You be careful," because at that time I was writing songs, playing guitar. I made my first short film, and I was acting and reading about intellectual things. And he said, "You be careful you don't become a jack of all trades, master of none."
Yeah.
Now, 40 years later, this guy's on his way out. I'm going to have lunch with him, and I hold myself up to this standard and look at it and think about it. Because what am I doing with my life? This is, a few years ago, but it's the same thing now.
Yeah.
Writing songs and music, making movies, and I'm acting. I'm doing the same thing. And I thought about it, and I thought, did I become a jack of all trades, master of none? And then I decided, no, in fact, I mastered one thing. I believe, and I say this with humility because there are great ones in the world,
Sure.
but I am at least a master storyteller. And whether it's a song or a part that I'm interpreting for somebody else or a movie, it is the same thing. It's my world and my vision and my humanity that I put to work with my skills to make some kind of piece to express life. The same thing that everybody else does. We're going to talk today about a movie about an incredible woman who did it better than most of us will ever dream of doing it. And one of her best friends in the world, he says so as well, is David Lynch.
Yeah.
And David Lynch is, in my opinion, I've thought about this a lot, and I looked at Hockney's work and a whole bunch of people. David Lynch is the greatest artist of the 20th and 21st century thus far.
Yeah, I don't think you get a whole lot of argument.
I don't think so either. I mean, how many pieces of Picasso's have you seen? I ain't seen that many. I mean, and Van Gogh would give him a run for his money, but it's the wrong century. He was in the teens, right? So we're good. And what did David Lynch do with his life? He made music, he made movies,
Yeah.
he even acted, and he sculpted, and he made furniture, and
He gave the weather report for a while too.
and did it well.
Yes, he did.
And did everything, to me at least, to my vision, in his absolutely distinctive way, in his own vision, more than any artist that I personally know. Maybe I have our art director for this film has that kind of, you can't, there's no middle ground. It's either this way or it's wrong.
Right.
So it's hard to collaborate sometimes, but sometimes not. I collaborated with David on 3 different projects in my life, and he's the best collaborator I ever worked with.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we never discussed anything.
Yeah.
I think I'm joking, but I'm not.
Yeah, that's hard to believe.
Well, I'll tell you the examples. Is this where you want to go with this? I'm having
Sure, yeah. We go wherever it goes. I'm in.
Here's where we are at the moment. Here's my 3 times collaborating with David and never discussing the work.
Okay.
I approached him I met him when I was 20. I was coming down from San Francisco where I'd been living for a few years. I had a theater company. I left my dog with the theater company. I was 20 years old. It was 1973, and I was a hippie. And part of the adventure of being a young male hippie in 1973 is you got to go test yourself against the world. I got to go to Europe and get lost for a year and find out, Dharma bums. Where am I going to end up? What's going to happen? How am I going to deal with walking into Paris, France, and not knowing anybody and finding an experience, finding life? That was really what it was about. It was about challenging yourself in situations to find yourself, right? It was ultimately about just experiencing different things you'd never experienced. So I'm on my way down to I'm living in San Francisco. I'm on my way down to see my folks who were both separately living in Los Angeles. We're all from New York. And 2 days with my mom, 2 days with my dad. On the first day with my dad, he takes me and my brother and my sister to the Pomona Fair, which is the big county fair outside of Los Angeles.
Yeah.
They have a racetrack there. And I had saved $600 that summer doing improvised verse in the streets of San Francisco. And it was 73. That's a lot of money, right?
That's a lot of money.
$200 a month. And I'd saved 6. I had, had some cash. So my father takes us to the racetrack, and he liked the handicapping and was very good at it.
Yeah.
I'd never been to the races ever. And I said, what do I do? And he said, well, it doesn't, you just pick a couple of numbers. It doesn't really make any difference because you're not going to be doing anything intellectual with it. Pick the colors, the names, doesn't make any difference. But this first race is a $2 exacta. You put $2 on one horse to win and one horse to come in second, and then you flip it so you don't kill yourself if they come in neck and neck, right? So from colors, I remember it was white and greens were in my mind as I remember, 6-3 and 3-6, $2 to win and place, the $2 exacta. Yep. Boom, $508 profit. I now had $1,100.
It doesn't usually work that way.
No, it doesn't. So the next race is a $5 exacta race, right? And I do my little, crazy, meaningless, this reminds me of this thing. And I picked 1-7 and 7-1. Boom, another $108 right there. So I walked in with 600. Now I'm walking out with 1,200. I take the $8 or something, whatever it is, and buy my sister and brother a Coke. And I decide to stay in LA for an extra week, not hitchhike to New York. I was going to hitchhike to New York. I was going to try and find a job on a tramp steamer, somebody that would pay me to work across so that I could protect this $600. I now had $1,200. I was like to the moon. So I spent $300 on a round trip, open-ended ticket on British Airways, LA, London. I mean, this is the biggest thing I've ever bought in my life. It's open-ended. Anytime that year I want to come back, I can come back, right? And I decided to stay one more week in Los Angeles, and I booked the flight for Monday. And on Saturday, I get a call that 2 of my partners from San Francisco, the actors, these 2 women are coming down to audition for a show in Santa Monica, a brand new theater built by the guys who built the fabulous Magic Castle in the Hollywood Hills.
Yeah.
All the magicians in the world belong to this fabulous dinner place with 3 stages. They had turned a Santa Monica theater into an English-style music hall. Now, picture, if you will, red maroon curtains on an old ornate stage, and to the left side of the stage, a box. Now, have you ever seen a film called Mulholland Drive?
Of course.
Okay, well, you know that scene where the magician is standing on the stage?
Yes.
Box right up there next to the stage, right? That's exactly what the Mayfair Music Hall looked like in 1973.
Oh, okay.
And the person in the box was Bernard Fox, who went on to television fame as a British butler or something on some TV show. I don't remember what it was. I never watched it. And one of the people that got cast along with me in this show was a woman named Frankie Phipps Wilson, who had this character Bubbles, where she'd do bawdy English style. She was a big, lusty woman, and she would do dirty songs for the audience. Not quite dirty, more lusty, I would guess.
Yeah.
Anyway, her best friend, or one of her best friends from San Francisco, from the theater up there, was Catherine Coulson.
Oh.
And her other pal was Jack Nance, and they were married, living in the Hollywood Hills, and making this little film called Eraserhead with this guy, David. And where was I going to hang out for those 6 or 12 weeks? Because they convinced me to stay for 2 runs.
Yeah.
I hung out with David and Jack and Catherine up in Beechwood Canyon.
Amazing.
And I had a drinks tab, right? And I don't drink. Might smoke a little bit of something.
Right.
Right. Hardly. And David liked it, and Jack really liked his liquor, and they would come and just use up my drinks tab because I wouldn't use it.
Yeah.
So David used to watch me perform this big, large, dramatic character, Richard Edward Green actor, right? This, comic, funny, kind of humorous thing. It was humble in the base of it, but he would see me do that show.
Yeah.
And that's how I
mean, that's amazing.
And David,
did you ever make it to London?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, 5, I think it was 6 weeks. I think it was like 2-3 week contracts, because it doesn't feel like it was 3 months. It feels like it was, but it could, I don't remember exactly how long, 50 years ago. Right. So
it goes by like that, though.
It does, man. I made it to London in spades. That was an amazing year. I started in England, went up to Edinburgh and parts of Scotland, and then came back down to England for a while, over to France, to the Alps.
Oh, wow.
To Paris for a while, and then Spain. I was headed for the warmer climates, and I ended up in Torremolinos, Spain for a week or 2, and then I went across to Morocco, and I spent a month traveling around Morocco, and then came back up. And
I mean, that's what everybody at that age dreams about, but most of us don't do it.
Well, I admit to being crazier than most of my friends on that level. I think it comes back to being a storyteller. I think I've always been a storyteller, and somehow or other, there's something about the writing of the stories. It's your life. We all do it, right? We all write our own stories, basically. We decide which way to go when we get up in the morning, what costumes to put on. Do you want the red shirt or the black shirt today?
Right.
Are you looking like conservative? Or, we all think about the people that we're with, the things we're trying to do, the things we dream about, what we want to get away from, what we want to get to, right? So I think storytellers, in almost any form, we play with that. Right. I can invent a character and have him do things, and then he'll react to them, probably ways that I would imagine, it's all coming out of our own heads.
That's right.
So I think we're all storytellers. I think some of us are much more risk averse than others.
That's right.
Some of us have experienced that if we take these chances. I wrote a piece that was my first feature film. It was called 7 Year ZigZag.
Yes.
7 Year ZigZag is entirely in narrated rhyme over original swing music that was written in the early 80s while I was start the new swing movement in LA and London because I hated disco.
Yeah.
I'll tell you how it starts, and then I'll quote something from it. It starts New York, 1978. It's summer late, almost fall. I play Shakespeare in the park by day, and at night, I give my all, risk everything I've got to get a movie shot. The Doomsayer. about a hippie on the bum who thinks the end will come in 7 days, and all the ways he tries to say, wake up to the world.
Right.
But nobody listens, and I can't raise the bread, and I have to put the project on the shelf instead. What's the next step? So it narrates in that form
Yeah.
this 7 years that I spent literally trying to start the new swing movement. I had this vision driving across country, this
Amazing.
vision of what could be at that point.
Well, swing's such a fun genre of music.
It is extremely fun, John. And I think very broad, widespread. I mean, you've got Texas swing,
Yeah.
which is good country music. And a lot of what we hear on the radio, Texas rock and roll, has a real swing undertone to it.
Yeah. Yeah,
Keeps
you're
you
right.
moving, it makes you feel good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it does. Yeah, get you moving.
It gets you moving. In our film that we're talking about here, I Know Catherine the Log Lady has a very interesting musical history of how it came to be. I have not talked about that anywhere. If you'd like
Yeah,
me
let's
to,
talk about that. Yeah, talk about because yeah, the movie is I Know Catherine the Log Lady, and it's out now. It's
yes.
out now, but yeah, let's talk about that. Tell me a little bit about the music from it.
Do you want me to give your audience a little overview of what the film is?
Yeah,
Because
yeah, please. Yeah, please.
we were talking about me coming down from San Francisco and hanging out with Jack Nance and Catherine Coulson and David Lynch. David Lynch is the man who directed his first feature was Eraserhead, which starred Jack Nance, the guy with the piled up hair all high.
Right.
That was created by David, but it was implemented by Catherine Coulson, right? Who also learned on that set of Eraserhead in the early 70s. It was the American Film Institute's first outing, and they gave David Lynch 2 years and some money to make a movie, and he stayed there 6 years. And he made one of the most unique and original films ever made. I don't know if you've seen the film Elephant Man.
I have.
It's a
Yep.
David Lynch film, and it was Mel Brooks, the comic genius behind, Blazing Saddles and
Well, you got Spaceballs. We're getting ready to get the sequel. Yeah.
yes, and Young Frankenstein as
Oh, Young
well.
Frankenstein. Yeah.
This comic genius who started, in the early days of television was Sid Caesar, his partner Carl Reiner, whose son Rob Reiner is one of our great directors today, and
Yeah.
whose father was also a comic. Mel Brooks saw in Eraserhead, he saw the genius of David Lynch and gave him the opportunity to do Elephant Man, which is a singular piece. It's for me, knowing David's full scope of his work and not being a scholar at all about any of this, I'm
Yeah.
just a guy looking at movies like everybody else, right? But in the scope of it, there's two movies that are anchored in one world. There's the Straight Story, this film he did at the behest of Mary Sweeney, that was based on a true story, which is and it's told in a straight way. There's no Lynchian deeper
Right.
meanings or motives or nothing that you could interpret more than one way. It's this just sweet
Yeah, I know
story,
it's very unlike him.
very unlike him. But so was the Elephant Man in some ways. The only thing that made the Elephant Man unusual was the disease that the character had,
Right.
because the way the story was told just intimately. And I always felt when I was watching that film, I should go back and watch it and see if this image holds true, but I always felt like I was a little kid looking out from behind my father's coat when I was watching The Elephant Man. We were so intimately ingrained in this poor person's life, and the
Right.
cruelty and the dirtiness and the characters coming out of nowhere. It was shocking to me and made me feel like a little boy just, watching the world
Yeah.
from the relative safety of daddy's, coattails. But that's a very normal film. Everything else that he did in between that brings in other elements, either other
Right.
structural storytelling elements or maybe other elements about what's real. And our character, Catherine Coulson, who played the log lady, is the perfect example of kind of the meshing of the weirdness and the real, and why I believe Twin Peaks has been so successful for 30 years, is that the characters, the people who played those roles, were real. They were being authentic. They were being themselves. Not that they weren't acting and making, creative choices, and not that, Kyle MacLachlan is Agent Cooper or any of those people. But as an actor, you just like you put on a costume, one way to look at it, and this is only a way to look at it, is that you also put on these different lenses from what not only what you see on the outside, but how you look at yourself on the inside.
Sure.
Right? If you've got somebody tickling you, you don't really think about how cold it is or how hot it is. Your entire sensation is you don't want to be tickled.
That's right.
Difference. It's just overwhelming. And really, what we do as actors is great directors create an environment for us, right? And great actors fill out that environment, because no director can put you in the real world and shoot you, right? There's always going to be the camera. There's always going to be the crew. The relationship that you have with the other person that you're acting with, whether it's a stone or a log or, Peter O'Toole, right? The depth of that relationship is really what you want to imagine. Right now, you and I, we're acting in a sense, right? You're a man in West Virginia, so you say. You could be in, any place.
I could
right?
be anywhere.
I'm a man, we assume I'm a man in Los Angeles, and we're presenting things to each other. Now, when it gets interesting, maybe for our audience, certainly is when it gets interesting for us. It's when we all of a sudden, I'm not giving you the same answer I gave the last 12
That's right.
podcasts I did about this thing, because I'm trying to sell my movie. And, I'm trying, for me, because of the world that I'm in and because what the movie's about and because how the movie works, my job is to be with you. Remember the things they want me to talk about and do all of that and keep my language fairly clean and make it easy for you to cut it. Don't talk too much too long, but it's to be with you, to make this an experience that we have that's real for us right now. And the more interesting it is for you and me right this minute, is the more interesting it's going to be for everybody who's listening now or in the future. The best interview that I conducted for this film, not to say anything negative about any of the other interviews, they're wonderful. But the one that moved me the most was the first one, and that was with David. And the reason why I believe
that's a tough standard for the rest of us to beat.
It wasn't for anybody else to beat. The thing about it, it was the best interview for me because of my trust in my interaction with him based on the last thing we did, which was Mulholland Drive. He called me at the last minute, told me he was sending over the sides, not the script. Wanted it, this was Friday. On Monday morning, he wanted to shoot it. And
fast.
7 pages of monologue for me. I'm the magician, right? And the last thing he says on the phone, this is, was, hey, Richard, I kind of want it in French and Spanish too. I'm like, what?
That's a very good impersonation, by the way.
Thank you. I listened to him a lot over the last few years editing. I try to tend not to do it because I know it's not nearly as good as he is.
But I could hear it though.
Anyway, he gave me his home phone number and told me to call him the next day to get a translator. He wasn't there, and I reached out to a French-speaking and a Spanish-speaking person, and they told me the options of how you could say this in their language, right? Sometimes it was pretty direct. I think no hay banda is we have no band. I don't know if there's another way. I'm sure there's another way to say that. But many of the things that they gave me, there were options of how things sounded, how to phrase something that you're translating from an English sentence into a Spanish or a French sentence. So I dutifully typed it all up, and now my 7-page script was 21 and a half pages. And I looked at it, and now this is like Saturday night, and I got to shoot this thing on Monday morning. And
no pressure.
Costumes today, and I kind of I think I don't know why I felt I could do this, but I did. I took the English and the French and the Spanish, and I put them all up there, and I said, how about a little bit from column A, and let's try this. And the rhythm of this, repeat this here, and then a little French. Now we'll go back to Spanish. How about a little English? And I took his melody that he had given me And like, Duke Ellington might have given Billy Strayhorn, and not that I'm Billy
Right.
Strayhorn, I arranged it. I decided what language when and wrote it up. So now I only had like 10 pages to learn. And on Monday morning, I walked in, I was in costume. We're on that gorgeous set, which has a box just up there where that one, there's a red curtain just like this, and it feels, and David meets me on the set, and he and I are not buddies. We don't run into each other. We do run into each other like 5 or 6 times throughout my life I ran
Yeah.
into him in hot places, but we weren't pals. I wasn't coming over this. I hadn't seen him in a couple of years. At this point, he called me up, and I said, here's the English and French and Spanish version. It's in 21 pages. And here's this kind of like I put it together in a way. Do you want to take a look at it? Well, let's see it, Richard. And I showed it to him. He asked me if I could swoop into the microphone at one point and say something right into the microphone. And I asked him if I could get rid of the cane that I was carrying, like by throwing it in the audience. He said, yeah,
Yeah.
but he'll catch it. To this day, because I couldn't see past the footlights, right? It's all the lights on the stage are there. So I'm not seeing in the audience. I can
Right.
see the balcony above the darkness where the camera is or in the audience is. There's a balcony, and that's where Naomi Watts and Laura Lena Herring are, right? And I have not yet met them, right? I'm coming out there as this character, talking to David, showing, and then we just do it. We do it a couple of times.
Yeah.
So why I brought this up is coming back to the interview notion. That feeling, right? When I showed him that, this is his work. He wrote that brilliant scene in that brilliant film. I didn't write it. He wrote it. It's his
Right.
melody.
Right.
Happy birthday. There, right? I just performed it in a different way. And he was just immediately open to it. He was
Well, and
open.
that's everybody I've talked to always says that it wasn't always just he wasn't just stuck his way. He was open to at least considering, different choices that actors wanted to make.
I think it was even more than considering. I think that part of his process was giving you something and then letting you react to it.
Yeah.
Right? And that's not just sort of, I'll consider your ideas. It wasn't
But no,
that.
you're right. You're right.
Because
Yeah.
we never talked about it. I didn't like say to him, so here's the idea of this is what I did, and would you like to try? I just said, here's what I did. Do you want to see it? He wanted to see it. He saw it. He got it. He didn't have to say anything to me. He didn't have to do anything. I looked in his eyes and he got it. And it was that connection, that the connection you always have with anybody who is super present, right? Who's really just right there experiencing you, right?
Yes.
Looking in your eyes and they get you. It was very, very powerful. And I knew I didn't have, it wasn't like, oh, I hope he likes me. I didn't go, I hope I can do it a second time. There was no fear. There was nothing other than, oh, he digs it. Let's do it. Boom. And we did it a couple of times and that's it. Right. And when I sat down to do this interview with him, we hadn't seen each other in 20 years,
Yep.
right? There was some question in my mind. To be honest with you, I was very kind of surprised and shocked that when Inland Empire was made, I
Yes.
wasn't brought in to audition for it, for anything.
Yeah.
They didn't even consider me for anything. Not only was I not handed the part like I was in Mulholland Drive, given, they didn't even let me come in and beg for a part or read for anything.
Yeah.
And I thought I must have offended David. We had made simultaneously the time that Mulholland Drive was being made. I made that film, Year ZigZag, we were talking about. And I
Oh,
also produced a young director, wonderful kid, Chris Levins, directed David Lynch Presents, a Next Step Studios production, I Don't Know Jack, the unsolved life and homicide of Eraserhead star Jack Nance.
yeah.
Right. So
Amazing.
the woman, Frankie Phipps Wilson, who had been a part of that theater company years before, and is the woman who brought me up to David and Catherine and Jack, that was Bubbles, she was producing this movie for us and she went a little crazy and she stole all the master tapes.
Oh,
And all we had left was the output from the Avid. And Avid is a digital video editing system. It was invented, by the way, by George Lucas of Star Wars fame, so that he could organize all the media that he made Star Wars. Invented digital editing. Anyway, all we had was the output, the 90-minute output, the director's cut. The whole plan was the director, young kid, Chris Levins, was going to do his cut. I wasn't going to touch it. I set the thing up. It was out of my studio, at my house. It was my money. It was my friends. But I was going to stay hands off.
that's
and
right.
this 23-year-old kid was going to tell the story of, I don't know Jack. He didn't know Jack. He was interested. He was a super fan of Eraserhead when he was at Penn State 6 months before. It was just a really good idea because I was about to direct my own film in my studio. I had a very active voiceover career, pretty active acting career at that point, and all of my partners, good sound theater people, all said, "You be careful here. If you're going to let that project happen, can you let it happen its own way without controlling it?" And so it was, a matter of pride for me that I was not going to see anything. I had a couple of meetings to keep things organized and straightforward, but I basically just did my own project and let him shoot his own project. I mean, we both had the same editor. He was working on both projects simultaneously, putting them together as we were shooting them. It was kind of an interesting process of a compound, small house with another house next to it. It was, very, very cool. And then this woman, Frankie Phipps Wilson, she went a little crazy. She didn't like the direction that the film was going in. She wanted to say some things in the film that we didn't find any background for. And before I even got a chance to see the whole film, she stole all the master tapes. So all we had was this 90-minute cut, and I couldn't change it. Even if I wanted to, that's it. That's what we had, right? We did eventually do a 55-minute version, I think the director was involved with, which I don't think ever got seen. So,
I mean, how did you not just try to get those back from her?
Well, we did. What do? We went to the police department and to the Hollywood station, the one they use at Bosch. Yeah, that's where the Bosch station. We went to the Hollywood station. We filed a report, and they basically said she was your employee. She was living at a house you were renting, and she stole from you. That's kind of a civil issue, sir, but we'll take a police report. But they weren't going to do anything about it. A couple of weeks later, she did contact us through her son, who was a good kid, and said that she would give us all of the tapes back, providing we paid her 2 months vacation time, which she felt she had coming. And so we gave her 2 months of vacation time that she felt that she had time. We paid her a couple of grand for each month, whatever it was, because we were paying for her housing as well.
Yeah.
And we got back these boxes of beta tapes, these 30, I've probably got some here. If you look around and see any beta tapes.
I remember the beta tapes.
Yeah, I'll show your audience. I think I've got a box of them because we're doing some transfer. But if you can't, don't worry, Jane, if you can. And 2 big tapes, right? And the 2 big tapes were the movie, right? So she gave us back the movie. And she gave us these 2 boxes or 3 boxes, I think it was, of these smaller beta tapes, these 30-minute tapes with all the names of all the people. And we took them and put them on the shelf. And the next day, our producer, Donna DeBain, said, I wonder if she really gave us back David's interview. She thought maybe Frankie wouldn't have given us back David's interview.
Yeah.
She went to the 3 boxes and she pulled David Lynch's interview. This is a big one. This is actually a 90-minute beta SP tape, right? And the smaller ones are about half that size, actually, or about that big, and they're beta tapes. So she took out the David Lynch tape and opened it up, and it was filled with dry rice. And she went, oh my God, and she put it down and she grabbed the next rice. All of the 3 boxes of tapes that came back to us were filled with rice.
What in the world?
Well, I think it was pretty brilliant because it felt like the weight was about the same. So not a, pretty smart stuff. We never got them back. And she passed away a couple of years ago, and we couldn't even find, we know that they were unhoused. They weren't in boxes anymore, and they were
Right.
in the desert in Palmdale or someplace in some strange
Gosh.
environment. It's
That had
sadly,
to be very stressful at the time.
it was stressful at the time. It ensured that the film was what it was. And when we showed it to David, he loved it and he put it out we put it out, but David Lynch .com, which was the most innovative website when it first happened, it was brilliant. I mean, they
Yeah.
just stretched what internet was and what websites could do and what you could do as interactively as an audience with David. It was really beautiful. And we sold numbers of, I don't know, Jack on that website. He was very proud of the film. But it was about a year and a half later that he found out about the stolen tapes.
Yeah.
I didn't talk to him, Donna did. And I was left with the impression that somehow we had offended him. Now, wasn't sure. And then I didn't get brought into Inland Empire
Right.
audition. I tried to call, like I wrote to Joanna Ray. Nobody got back. It was like, wow, okay. So when we started the I Know Catherine project, there was no way that I wanted to do the project without David. He
Well,
was
right.
so important into her life and important into to finding an audience for her life. But more important than that, the two of them, who they were and what they meant to each other, is extraordinary. And he was willing to give us all of that. But when we went, I did an extensive interview, structure of what I wanted to ask and why. And I'd spent a lot of time developing a company called Video Biographies, and the idea of how you move through someone's life and how you structure questions are really important. We're having a good time. We're just raw
That's right.
dogging it. We're just however we go. And I'm sure you have some wonderful and structured questions as well. But you're open to the changes of whatever's happening.
Well, that's right. That's right. Well, and that's kind of my format. I just try to have a conversation, just see where it goes.
Well, exactly. Well, in this case, because I was making a movie, I needed certain things. I needed it to go certain places, or I wanted to find out where it would go in those places. And my structure and approach to, I think, these interviews was a little bit to get into the influences, the artistic influences of the person that I'm talking to, find out about them, where they come from, so that the questions that I focus later can be in context.
Sure.
If
Yeah.
I would never have known that Kyle MacLachlan studied and played Shakespeare at the largest repertory company in the country, the Oregon Shakespeare Festival, right out of college. I wouldn't have known that had I not structured both
That's right.
structured the interview, but also done the research. So I did all this research. I structured my interview for David, and I walked in with Donna Dubain, our producer, and I said to her, as we're going into David's it's his studio, right? It's where they
Yeah.
do all the recording, and it's also a screening room. That's when you see, I Know Catherine, you'll see him sitting. There's like 4 or 5 rows behind him.
Yeah.
That's the screening room. But right in front of that, I think there's not a shot in it, but we'll publish some because I have a little bit of backstage. You see the console and the beautiful mixing console and the screen, but also the sound stage and the isolation booth. It's a beautiful, beautiful
Yeah.
space. And I said to Don, I said, look, if for any reason David is uncomfortable, because I thought maybe he was mad at me and that's why, and
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know the guy that well. Right? I had, so I said, here's the script. If it's just any sense at all, if there's any kind of issue, here's the script. And I will just go, right? Like we got to
Yeah.
have that. So he comes in, we get there, Michael Burrell, his assistant, who is like I just at his birthday party last week, and he's moving on with his life. He's a wonderful writer, a really amazing guy, 17, 18 years with David.
Wow.
You know, a lot of the best work that we know from David as well, just and
Yeah.
a very, very cool guy. Anyway, he's there. I meet him for the first time. This is 8 years ago, and he says, give you about 45 minutes to set up, and then David will come on out. So we set everything up. Had a very good DP, Eric Zimmerman, had Baraka and Jenga on the audio, and Donna Dubain on one side of camera, me on the other side of camera. David comes in, he says Donna, and he gives her a big hug, and I'm sitting there going, oh, okay, what's gonna happen? He lifts up and he says, Hello, Richard. Walks past me, climbs the stairs to the top of the stairs, went higher than he needed to go, turns around and goes, "No, I banda."
Well, did that relax you at that point?
It did, man. It totally did. And then what happened is he sat down, and the same thing that was there that day when I gave him my stuff
Yeah.
based on his stuff, the same thing turned around. He gave me his stuff based on my questions. He just
Love it.
went. And I, I don't want to pull the curtain back on a magic trick a little bit too
That's
much,
right.
but it took me about 6 months of editing this film, maybe a year, before I realized that oftentimes David's long stare when he's thinking about something, right? He's looking at Donna. At times it just looks like a long stare, right? Because he'll
Yeah.
come, I'll ask him a question and he'll talk about it and think about it and emote about it and then turn back to me. So we get that sense as an audience watching this film. The whole idea is he's talking to us,
Right.
right? He's talking to
Right.
me in that moment, but he's talking to all of us, and he's answering questions that I'm asking that all of us,
That's right.
any of us would want to ask, and my team, I'm sure, suggested sometimes all of us want to know certain things about who we are, who our lives are, why did I make this movie? Why do you do this
Right.
podcast? You know, why do we care? Why are we?
Right. What an amazing time, though.
Yes.
I mean, and I can just picture it. You're going in and you're nervous because you're not sure of the relationship. That would make you pretty nervous. And then he comes in and it's probably feeling just a little bit worse. Like, I don't know how this is going to go. But then, he does what he does. And then you're just in it and everything's great. Everything's fine.
And the trust is there.
Yeah,
And the proof of the pudding is in the eating, right? You ever heard that expression?
I have.
An old German expression. I associate it with Bertolt Brecht and Three Penny Opera, I think, but maybe just Brecht in general. But the proof of the pudding is in the eating. You got to really, whatever they can say what they want about it, they can make it look pretty, but it's a pudding. So you got to eat it. And if it tastes good and doesn't kill you,
Right.
then it's good. And if it doesn't
Right.
taste good, no matter how pretty it is or how expensive it is or rare, makes no difference. And I didn't ever discuss my work on Mulholland Drive with David Lynch. He told me what he was thinking about in kind of a general way. He never said magician. I heard, I heard not, I mean, he never said evil. I heard dark.
Yeah.
Just never heard evil. But I had described to him a truly evil character that I had played. That's, I think, the other element that he brought together for Mulholland Drive was I hadn't seen him in a long time, maybe 10 or 15 years. And Jack Nance passed away, unsolved homicide, right?
Right.
And we all gathered in Pasadena at a church here somewhere. I don't know which one it was. And there were a lot of people I hadn't seen in a long time,
Yeah.
came from far and wide, around the country for Jack Nance's memorial. And at one point, I was standing in a corner someplace smoking a cigarette, and of course, David came up, standing smoking a cigarette. Says that he remembered me, but he didn't remember how I knew Jack. So I told him that I became a part of a theatrical family, right? That had started. It turns out the roots of that theatrical family, this particular theatrical family, started back in Pomona. It's talked about in I Know Catherine the Log Lady.
Yeah.
Catherine Colson went to Scripps College, the Pomona colleges, right? This would be the late 60s. And while there, one of her good friends became a young man named John Acorn, right?
Okay.
He
Yep.
was also there during the time that Frank Zappa was doing Mothers of Invention, which is another part of our story, maybe. Uh, and so the antecedents of I told him about meeting meeting John Acorn at this fair outside of San Francisco.
Yeah.
The Renaissance Fair started in the late 70s, or I guess the early 70s, maybe even late 60s. But they were a thriving business and a thriving cultural phenomenon, much not unlike Burning Man is. People who were
Yeah.
totally dedicated to this stuff would maybe go from the Northern Fair to the Southern Fair every year. And craftsmen would work 6 months to make enough stuff, enough, feather earrings to sell at the Renaissance Fair.
Right.
Right? Or,
Right.
or knit shawls at the Dickensian Fair that was later, the Dickens Fair that they started later, which is how I got involved with all this stuff.
Yeah.
I met John Acorn. I was hired to do this fair that John Acorn was also going to be doing. I didn't know at the time. And they told me I could do my improvised verse act, Richard Green actor, right? Which was much more humble than that. That was the challenge. And
That's
then,
right.
that was, all right, that wasn't very good, but let's try again. It was a much nicer guy that actually performed for them. And they gave me a double salary if I had another act. And I had been a magician as a kid, and I had always wanted to build this 15-foot gallows, right? I had this idea that I could, it was a cross piece and two big pieces that came down, and there were legs. And then the cross piece I would tie a noose to, and you could
Nope.
see the rope, and there would be a curtain that would be held up just above that, right? And I would stand on a box with a rope tied attached to it through a hook, right? And the rope would be in the audience's hands. And I would stand, I would have the two other members come up, they would handcuff me or tie me up or chain me. I don't remember what device I used. And so with my hands behind my back, I would stand on the box and they would lower the curtain. So you saw the rope, right?
Yep.
They would put the rope around my neck and they would lower the curtain so you could just not see my face, right? To about here.
Yeah.
That's about it, right? So, and then they would pull the box out, right? I'd go 1, 2, 3, and the audience would tug, and I would do my absolutely most convincing death. I mean, I wasn't fucking around. This was evil shit, man. This wasn't, comic like, look at him, his feet are flint. No, I was like, it was torturous. The audience was uncomfortable.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I would jump free and da 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 da, right? So the only character that could do this awful thing to an audience was a very dark, almost evil magician.
Yep.
And I named myself after a Hermann Hesse novel, The Great Abraxur, right? And that's what I told David, who had seen me in front of a red curtain with this. And at the end of Jack's memorial, I dropped over to his car as they were leaving, and I handed him a double cassette book on tape.
Yeah.
About 7 years trying to start the new swing movement in LA and London. So it's full of just great horn arrangements and solos, right? When I arrived on the set for Mulholland Drive, I was in the room that I had performed at the Mayfair Music Hall, right? I'm playing a character as large as the character he'd seen me do, but with this shade of darkness and these brilliant conceptual lyrics.
Yeah.
The lines, the dialogue is a real, it just puts a perspective on everything. And sound effects and swing music. It was
Amazing.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's what made him him.
I think you're right.
He would make those type of connections with everybody he run into, which is why I think everybody loved him so much, because it was just different than anybody else did it.
George Griffin was talking about that the other day at this guy Michael Burrell's birthday party. He was talking about, just how long it took between the time that he met David, under interesting circumstances, and then David brought him in and just handed him this work, handed him this great role opposite Kyle MacLachlan in Kyle's greatest role in an extraordinarily innovative and powerful 18-hour film.
Yeah. Amazing. Yeah. I love that. I love that. At what point did you decide that you were going to make this movie about the log lady? You know, when did the idea come around?
So I'm almost, I'm not embarrassed to say it. It's just sometimes things just seem too perfect, you know.
Yeah.
I have a partner who will sometimes, speculate that we're really all just a simulation. Since that's the case, this pattern that you're seeing here, Richard, come on,
That's
right?
right.
Poor programming,
Just
let's speed it up a little bit. You have an ache and a pain? Oh, somebody needs to. Can I get a code patch, please?
that's
Here.
right.
So, um, Catherine Coulson died on September 28th,
Yeah.
2015. What day? That's a
About a
month
month
from
from now,
tomorrow. A month
10
from
years
tomorrow,
ago.
10 years ago. And the day that she died, in the afternoon, she died in the morning, and in the afternoon, early evening, I know where I was standing. I was in my studio, and I get a call from Donna Dubain, who is, she's passed now herself. Maybe, David says in our movie, Catherine Coulson was one of his closest friends for sure.
Yeah.
Donna Dubain was one of my closest friends for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. And probably not unlike, the relationship, although we kept working. Well, no, they did too. Similar, very similar. And Donna called me up. She was upset, I knew, because uh, she had been trying to get up there to be a part of this. Catherine, for the last 3 to 4 weeks of Catherine's life, she was surrounded by this phalange this coterie of friends and family.
Yeah.
And she lived in Ashland, Oregon, where she had been 22 seasons, one of their primary actresses and primary movers and shakers in that theater community. And this is a $40 million annual budget for this theater company
Oh, wow.
8 years ago when I was researching it. 8 years ago, it was 40 million,
Wow.
right? It's like extraordinary, right? The guy who ran it when Catherine was there, she helped install him during his tenure. He runs PAC in London. This is the Permanent Arts Center. It's like
Wow.
right at the World Trade Center. It's this incredible facility, and it's an incredible artistic endeavor that he's bringing to that community,
Yeah.
approaching New York, and he's a New Yorker, like the community. It's a beautiful. I love what he's doing there. Anyway, so Donna wanted to go up, and she was supposed to go up with another person in our film, a person who was legendary. I never met her until I interviewed her, but she was legendary in my life because when I was 20 and starting this theater company with all these 27 and 28-year-olds, Timothy Neer was the most beautiful everything of it. She was the best of the best, and she was she was touring with the National Theater of the Deaf, though she wasn't deaf. She eventually signed on Sesame Street. If you grew up watching Sesame
I
Street, there
did.
was a period of time where she was the one who did the sign language stuff,
Oh,
right?
okay. Yeah, yeah.
Just still wonder. You'll see her in this movie. She's thrilling, right? She's just a wonderful, infectious personality. That's the thing about this film. And I should say this up front. I didn't write the story. It's a true story. And I didn't create the characters. These are Catherine Coulson's close friends and associates. And I didn't write the dialogue. I didn't tell anybody what to say.
I mean,
Right?
that in some ways that would make it a little easier, I think.
How?
Well, I'm
Really?
just thinking because you don't have to come up with the script, you just have a little more of an outline and then let them do what they do.
Yeah, here's the thing. Our first cut was 6.5 hours long. And it was just a linear chronology of all the cool and interesting and sad and tragic and perplexing and wonderful and inspiring things
Yeah.
about her life. Then we brought it down to a three-part miniseries because we felt that we could tell most of the story that way.
Yeah.
And now we brought it down to a feature because we feel just in this current media environment, shorter form material has a better chance of penetrating and has a better chance of
True.
recouping its costs you
Yeah.
know, allowing another project to come from its birth, you know. So and I think it's I mean, I'm very pleased with the structure of this film.
I mean,
I
do
don't
you ever any plans to at some point release some of what you didn't use?
So some of the social media pieces that we're doing come from the three-part. Right now it's a three-part. Um, if we're successful as we hope to be,
Yeah.
with this feature, because of what it is, not because of the direction of it, but because of who these people are, what they're saying, who they're talking about, and what they're describing. Because we really haven't told your audience. This is in 2014. I'll answer your question in a minute. May I
Yeah. Yeah,
divert?
of course.
In 2000, the end of 2014, David Lynch and Mark Frost, who had created Twin Peaks in 1990 and second season in 91, and then Firewalk with Me, a prequel in 92 as a feature film. They created these things. They owned them, which is kind of interesting. And they changed television. Talk to any of the TV innovators that you admire, Mark Cherry or anybody who's out there working. And there's some brilliant guys working. Twin Peaks broke the mold and opened up a whole forum. X-Files, how you couldn't have the
Right.
X-Files without Twin Peaks.
You're right.
You have a lot of shows that are out there because of what Twin Peaks was. But more, and this is something that I'm coming to just now after 10 years working on this project, and that's the answer to your question. And I'll answer the question now. Donna Dubain called me in the afternoon of Catherine's passing,
Yeah.
September 28th, 2015, and told me that Catherine had died.
Yep.
And everybody that was up there had signed an NDA with a $6 million penalty if they talked about what happened that night.
Oh, okay.
So she was hearing from one of the people up there, sotto voce, under the breath, this is what happened. They shot Catherine's scenes in her living room, and David directed on Skype.
Wow.
And Catherine died 4 days later, having done what she wanted to do.
Amazing.
And when I heard that, just when I don't even know if I had that much, but I know what I had was that she had died while playing a character who was dying of the same disease that she was dying of.
Yes.
Played the character while she was dying, 4 days from dying, 2 of those days in coma.
Wow.
Right? I thought, wow, exactly. I thought that.
Yeah.
Now you have to understand, I told you about Jack Nance's memorial, right? That time that David asked me how I knew everybody, right?
Yes.
2 years before he called me up from Mulholland Drive. So that memorial, right? After that memorial, everybody that had been a part of Catherine's theatrical life, all the people that had been in San Francisco that were now in New York and in Kansas City and down in Florida and in La Jolla, they all came to the memorial, and then they all came to my house where I had a studio behind my house and plenty of room for us to get raucous and no neighbors to it was just the perfect place for a big old party and a reunion of all these folks.
Yeah.
It turns out that the other group of people who were there that day were the Twin Peaks people. And they all went somewhere. I didn't even know this. It occurred. I knew that David didn't come to my house, but I thought everybody else did. But
Yeah.
no, it was everybody I knew. Everybody in the theater world, in the San Francisco world,
Right.
and came to my house. And everybody in the Twin Peaks world went to like a Copper Penny, or I'll ask Kimmy the next time I see her where they actually went. But I had never even heard about this till recently. But understand that when Chris Levins, the young boy who directed I don't know, Jack, that
Yeah.
documentary 20 years ago, right? When he came to me the next morning after hearing us talking about Jack with Catherine and realizing that we knew Jack and Catherine and Lynch, he came in and he said that that would make a great documentary about Jack Nance's life and his death. And I thought, all I have to do is we'll have a party. I'll just
Yeah.
ask everybody to come in for a weekend and we'll set a camera up, and sometime during the party, before everybody's too drunk, I'll interview, we'll interview him and we'll have a movie. That's what I thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
It wasn't that. I was making another movie. I promised my people that I wouldn't interfere, and Chris Levins was given the freedom to make a very personally unique film.
Yes.
I don't know, Jack tells the story in its own way. It's got its own rhythm, its own feel. It's a wonderful just experience into a whole other way of looking at the world.
Yeah.
Brilliant, brilliant work. I just saw it recently. We were screening it in Glendale here at the Lemley, and it's a wonderful film. And David loved it, which also made me very, very happy.
That's right.
So when I heard this from Donna Dubain that Catherine had died 4 days, or at that point I thought it was even less, after shooting her scenes of herself, I just thought this is a movie. And that's when I got the idea, and that's when I don't think I could ever let the idea go from that point. I did feel, there were a couple of years there that was probably I sold that house and moved out at the end of 2017. So for 2 years, I tried to develop the idea. And at first I thought, well, Twin Peaks is coming out. Who's not going to want to give me the money to make this?
Yeah, right.
Right. And so I needed to put it together. So the first thing I did is I went to Bill Rausch, the guy who was the artistic director of the Oregon Shakespeare Festival. I found out that every one of her performances going back to, oh God, what year was it? Like 93. Thank you, Jane Albachet, our manager and executive producer.
Oh,
93. All of them, and before that, were videotaped, including high, 4K video, or at least high def video, in the last 4 or 5 seasons of Catherine's life up until, 2015. So I made arrangements for us to have access to that material and those photographs, which, was very, very interesting. And then I started, Donna introduced me to Jenny Sullivan, who became our producer, who was one of Catherine's closest friends, a legendary theater director here in Los Angeles, just doesn't quit, just is, always called upon, is just really good at it. Her father was a famous, 40s, 50s, 60s, and later actor by the name of Barry Sullivan. I don't know if you know his work, but he did some really interesting films, especially I liked his work in the 50s, kind of a sharp edged, tough. I always see him in my head as a tough guy, but I've seen some lovely pictures of him kissing Catherine's daughter when she was, so he softened up a bit. She became our producer. Bill Haugsy became one of the executive producers. Took a stab at doing some interviews early on. He plays a very important role in the film itself. So let me just, I feel like we should have done this earlier, but there's always a trailer. Let me just tell your audience what the basic premise is that end of 2014, David Lynch and Mark Frost announced they're bringing Twin Peaks back. It's an innovative TV show. Showtime is going to put up the money and they're going to bring it back. And largely it kept alive because of Catherine. She would go to these Twin Peaks festivals every year, and the fans kept the festivals going. They were all fan-based festivals and conventions, the comms all around. She would carry the log. She would bring greetings from David. She would talk to the fans and interact with them.
Yeah.
Now, think back to your time at Disneyland and Mickey Mouse or Snow White or Peter Pan coming and talking to you. That's where Catherine learned how to do this because her father was the head of PR at Disney when they opened the park in 1958 or 7 or 9, or whatever it is, right? And Catherine grew up doing that. And so she helped keep this interest alive. And a really interesting cat, Peter Dom of Welcome to Twin Peaks, put a tremendous amount of digital ingenuity and blood, sweat, and tears into building Welcome to Twin Peaks, which has for the longest time been a very stalwart part of the fan community and the fan news community, and a place where everybody gets their news. You want to go there. That's like he makes sure it's,
That's right.
Thing. And he was very involved in our campaign when we started, and has some of his graphics have lived through all of the iterations of the film. Where am I going? Anybody know where I'm going? Do you know where I'm
Well, you were talking about Catherine keeping it alive, keeping
Well,
Twin
okay,
Peaks
so
alive.
she was keeping it alive, and people like Peter Dom keeping it alive digitally, creating new digital art. And there's a whole section, Kyle MacLachlan talks a lot about this in our film. There's a whole section about the kind of fan art that was created around Twin Peaks and these characters. It comes back down to what I believe is the premise of the film, and I'll get to in a second, but I just want to send the premise up for everybody.
Yeah.
So David Lynch and Mark Frost announced this as coming back at the end of 2014. Catherine is coming down from Oregon. The Wallace Annenberg Theater in Beverly Hills has decided they're going to bring the production of Into the Woods from Oregon down to Beverly Hills because the audience needs to see it. And Catherine was a very
Okay.
prominent part of that production, and she was on her way down here. I'm sure that David called her as soon as he was even thinking about bringing Twin Peaks back
Yeah.
because she was the #1 fan of Twin Peaks, according to everybody, including David, I imagine. And within weeks of his announcing that it's coming back, she finds out she has stage 4 lung cancer.
Yeah.
And the question becomes, is she going to live long enough to do this?
Yeah.
And they play this role, this important role that she's developed that was created on the set of Eraserhead. The idea, the character was conceived by David for Catherine on the set of Eraserhead. Silly idea. It'll tell you about it in our movie, right? And then birthed almost 20 years later in the pilot for Twin Peaks, just bursts on the scene. This character becomes an international cult icon and
Absolutely.
died 25 years later on camera as Catherine is dying on camera. It's an extraordinary story.
Yeah. What a story.
Since you mentioned Into the Woods. Okay, hold on one second. Tell them about Into the Woods again. Oh, yeah. So we can do a little plug if you don't mind for the
Sure.
Oregon Picture
Yeah.
Festival. So in that production of Into the Woods, which you'll see clips of from the Los Angeles Beverly Hills production here in our film, in that production, Catherine played a number of roles. One was Milky White, the cow. It's an important character in Into the Woods, which is all about storybook characters.
Yeah. Yeah.
But she also plays the giant in Jack and the Beanstalk, and they did that by shooting her visually, mostly I think a close-up of her head, and then projecting it on a giant screen at the back of the stage so that she's literally interacting, right, with the characters. Well, this summer, I guess, has it opened yet? I don't think it's opened yet. Oregon Shakespeare Festival in Ashland, Oregon,
Yeah.
is reviving Into the Woods with a whole new cast, although there may be some holdovers. And the giant will be played by Catherine Coulson in that same clip from
Oh, I love that.
10 years before in Beverly
Love
Hills.
that.
So that's
Yeah. They're keeping her alive.
keeping her alive. And here we have a feature film that she actively, well, the premise of the film again is, will she live long enough to do it? And in the middle of it, we don't know, right?
Right.
If she lives long enough to do it, how and where and why? Why must the show go on? The coolest review we have had wonderful things said about this movie by really wonderful, smart people.
Yeah.
And again, it's not, I didn't create this movie. I didn't write the story. I'm an audience member. I'm the ultimate audience member.
Right.
Everything, right? And I'm giving you the juicy parts, hopefully in a way that's really palatable. And I hope you love the film. And we'll come back to talking about the music because that's part of what makes any meal palatable,
Sure.
right? But this great review, to me, it's just because it says it all. It said the greatest show must go on story ever told. Because that's what this is about.
Yeah.
Show must go on. And what is that show? There's a wonderful musician you may know of by the name of Justin Johnson. Are you aware of Mr. Johnson?
I know Justin. Yeah. Yeah. Or know of him. Yeah.
He's brilliant slide guitar player, plays almost any kind of, he'll play a shovel for you actually, and builds shovel guitars. right? But he can play it all. And what's brilliant about Justin is that he's able to find the guts of the melody, the guts of the
Yeah.
thing we all remember about the song when we sing along in the car, or we remember it in the shower or something.
Yes.
He's able to find that. He embellishes it beautifully, but he also allows us to remember where it is, right? Sometimes jazz gets so outside that there's no inside,
That's
right?
right. Yep.
All outside, and you kind of make the thing up yourself. With Justin, he has this incredible, uh, I want to say, empathy for melody, where he just, they talk to each other, and he's able to, whatever instrument he's on, do that. So he was an
Love that.
early supporter. He really really helped this project financially when we were doing our Kickstarter, and we got to know each other. And um, I wrote a song and asked him to produce it. So our second credit song, there's an end title song that is a duet with Rebecca Del Rio. You may remember Rebecca Del Rio as the singer in Mulholland Drive,
Yep, I do.
right? Just passed away a few months ago, unfortunately. Um, and so
I know
Justin,
we've lost a lot that are
oh,
connected to his works just in the last decade.
yeah, too many.
Too
Well,
many.
here's the thing, though. It's partly age too, and there's an age. I think people, you might live past 78 or 79, and then it's kind of like, whoa, you're 80, okay, right?
It's almost like bonus time at that point.
Yeah, it's like it is. And I think we don't know how to deal with people some ways who are up to that age because we think they're so frail.
Right.
Or we don't realize how frail they are. Um, I have a wonderful friend. I don't know if you're a fireside theater aficionado.
Well,
You know,
I love the theater for sure. I don't know if
oh,
I call myself an aficionado, but
no, a firesign theater aficionado. Do you know the company, the Firesign Theater?
I do know the company Fireside Theater. Yes.
Okay, so this is a group of comedians in the 60s who did really wacky, they were the American Monty Python, right? And
That's right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's a very good comparison.
it is, except that circumstances, but also talents and who they were and where they were at what time. Python went on and made, an enormous number of wonderful movies. Not that they made that much money, I understand,
Yeah.
you know, but they made a lot of great stuff, and George Harrison and the Beatles financed, the
Yeah, I've heard that before. They
financed
financed a lot. Well, yeah, the Holy Grail they were involved in.
Holy Grail, all of that stuff. So, and I don't know that the Firesign Theater ever had that kind of opportunity to make those kind of films or have that kind of support, and maybe the Firesign and the Cheech and Chong, if you put them together, they're the equivalent
Right.
Python did. I don't know. That's maybe silly. But Phil Proctor was over at my studio just a few weeks ago. I hadn't seen him for quite a long time. We used to run into each other a lot. We both would do voiceovers for television and radio and film projects and stuff like that. And we had a common agent, and we'd all gather. It was the days before we had our own studios.
Yeah.
So we
Yeah.
would go to the office of the agent, and they had a booth and real microphones and somebody who could press play for you and record you. And so you just thought about your performance. But the most fun was hanging out on those couches with people like Phil Proctor. These, because
Yeah.
the voiceover business at that point in particular, this is like 20 years ago, 15 years ago, maybe 20, 25. It was so refined. There were so few people in it
Right.
that
Yeah, very select group.
very select group, and you had to be really, really good at what you did to be able to keep coming into your agent's office because there wasn't that many slots to read for. They didn't want to overbook stuff. There weren't that many other agents out there. It was a very selective thing, and if you were lucky enough to work, you could work a lot all
Right.
the time, especially if you were doing promo because that's like you're talking about a television show. They need people talking about the television show every day, right? It's like coming up now on, at News at 5, whatever it is, it's a constant turnover of new voiceover, especially in the news business and stuff like that. Um, and Phil Proctor, so we would hang out and you'd have outrageous stories when you get a bunch of comedians and,
Oh, I bet.
actors and sometimes pontificating kind of people too, like really kind of studious people that, they had a whole snooty kind of thing going, and that's what they were selling, and that's who they were, right?
Yeah.
But there was room for that in that voiceover business. I don't think the couches are much anymore. Everybody has their own recording setups,
Right.
and the agencies don't want to spend the money to do that, and it's changed dramatically as a business, but it was a lot of fun. Anyway, Phil Proctor came over the other day, and I think he's 85. Got a brand, his wife, his wonderful wife, passed away about a year and a half ago, and he's got a new girlfriend. And I
Oh,
think she's
wow.
considerably younger, and he's traveling the world, But when I saw him, you know, I gave him a big hug. It's Phil Proctor, this guy, like
Yeah.
he wrote on 7 Year ZigZag on the DVD version. Phil Proctor's, take on the movie that's featured on the back, right? Not that we were that close friends, but we were that kind of associates where he
Right.
really dug the film and we dug each other's work. And, he stepped up and wrote this really wonderful thing about my film. And I printed it on the back of the cover, right? So I go up and I give him this big hug. And I realized that I wasn't hugging 50, 60-year-old
That's right.
her. I was hugging an 85-year-old man, and I could have hurt him.
Yeah.
Right? We change, and that's the reality of it. They're out on the trail right now, right? We've got Sabrina Sutherland, David's
Oh, yeah.
producer, executive producer, and
Yeah. Just saw him in Virginia Beach.
how was that show? Tell us
Oh,
about
it
that.
was amazing. It was it's it's interesting to see a group of any people, but especially actors, I think, that are so attached to a project that, how many years later now they're touring the country to talk about it. I just it was amazing. And I was able to go backstage and talk to them, and Sabrina's been on the podcast, and I'm
Wonderful.
sure we'll have some of the I know Kimmy's coming on. We'll have some of the others, but um it was terrific. And there's a part where they play a kind of a montage of David's work, and they're all up on stage, and they just laid down on the stage so they could see the screen. So if you're in the audience, you're just seeing the backs of their head while they're looking up at the screen. It was great. Yeah, I had a terrific time.
I think it's wonderful. When I heard that they had invited Josh Eisenstadt to come and be the moderator, I was delighted because he was a favorite of Catherine's. Catherine adored that young man and gave him a great deal of access and support
Yeah,
and just respect. He tells a story. It's not in the any of the versions. But he tells a story about Catherine coming to him and asking if he would, it was either her Twin Peaks scenes, or it was maybe from what she did in Portlandia. She did a role, she
she
played a
did.
log
Yep.
character on that. She wanted him to take the tape because he was a filmmaker and he had an editing system, probably an Avid digital editing system, but
Yep.
it could have been an Apple product, Final Cut or Premiere from another company. There are a lot of editing systems out there now. And she wanted him to cut this for her. And, he was to be able to do anything for her. She'd been so, she'd introduced him to David. She'd, helped him do these trivia contests. She supported his family when they were running the Twin Peaks Festival every year, that it was
Yeah.
just rich and deep with the stuff that's in our movie, which is this deep appreciation of being present, of humanity, of life, of
I love
confronting it
that.
all and dealing with it all, and in the gooey, messy parts and in the sweet, wonderful parts. Um, I think, yeah, I think everybody should see this film because I think it touches on why it's important to truly live the moments that you have.
Well, that right there is a great line um, to get people to watch the film, because we all struggle with that. Just being present and just really enjoying what's happening right at that moment. We're always worried about what's coming next, or we're carrying
Yep.
baggage from the past. It's yeah, I love that. Well, and Josh did a terrific job. Yeah, I've had some experience moderating. It's not easy to
No,
do it well, and I thought he did a really good job.
I've learned it's not. I've done a couple of these panels where I
Yeah,
was the moderator, and it's kind of, how much of do you answer yourself? How much, and what's happening with the audience? It's a whole art form. And I think it also depends if the people are staying after an experience. Like I did these things after we showed them a movie which was designed to leave them, you know, just melted of,
yeah.
appreciative of life and of Catherine, right? I mean, that's what this movie is designed to do. It's designed to go into a life as deeply as you can and try and understand what motivated it, and especially a life like this, where someone accomplished so much in so many different ways. She had four really distinct aspects of her life. She was not only the log lady, an on-camera persona, right?
Yeah.
One of the most
Oh
recognizable
yeah.
of the last 100 years, right?
I mean,
Um,
she's had, thousands of memes made
oh,
up just about that character. I mean, she's in the
tattoos up the wazoo, man. I've seen some. I didn't mean that the way it sounded. I
but
mean,
I know what you're talking about though. Yeah.
lots of tattoos. Um, no, amazingly, right? So that was on camera. Behind the camera, Catherine on the set of Eraserhead was Fred Elms, Lifetime Achievement, winning cinematographer for
Yeah.
many of David's films and others we love, right? She became his assistant and learned how to pull focus. And when Fred got a job working for John Cassavetes in the middle of making Eraserhead, Cassavetes hires Fred to do Killing of a Chinese Bookie. And Fred takes Catherine. So they say, David will be coming back, and they go and they shoot this movie. So she worked on two John Cassavetes films. We just got a note or some comment recently from Jim Jarmusch, right? She worked on Night in, what is it? Okay. I'll find the title.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
will Night in the Hotel or something like that. I can't remember it. And then she did one of a pioneer in as a cinematographer, as a woman working in the camera department. She did Star Trek Wrath of Khan.
Yeah.
She pulled focus on Star Trek Wrath of Khan.
Wow.
Right? So that's now you've got her in front of the camera. Now you've got her behind the camera. On stage, she was, Snow White in Disneyland to how many countless children for
Amazing.
a couple of years. Her family ran the Aunt Jemima Pancake House, and it was all her friends that were, delivering the happy face pancakes,
Yeah.
the happy pancakes. And then Revolutionary Theater, Shakespeare, then Revolutionary Theater in San Francisco, then eventually 22 seasons at the top repertory company in the country, maybe the world, right? The Oregon Shakespeare Festival.
Very unique life, I think.
Completely. And the fourth thing that she did was that she was this incredible force in the communities that she was in, right? In Ashland, not only was she do they have a Catherine Colson Welcome Fund, right? She was the person who put together printed stuff for the new actors who came in every year so they'd know where to go to get a massage or childcare or whatever it is they needed, right? She married she converted from Catholicism to Judaism, married a rabbi, and became the Rebbitzin, the rabbi's wife in this community in Ashland. And what
Yeah.
that means is it's like the preacher's wife, right? I don't know,
Yeah.
the priest doesn't have a wife, but the preacher does, right? And
Sure.
the preacher's wife is the one who makes sure that the chicken soup is there and the pies are
Oh, I
baked,
know.
that people.
My grandfather was a Baptist minister, so my grandmother though ran the church. Like
Yes.
she handled everything.
So Catherine did that in this temple for 15, 10, 12, 15 years, whatever it was. She was there for 22 seasons and was one of their lead actresses doing multiple roles every year.
It seems like a
Extraordinary.
lot.
Oh, it seems like an enormous amount. And but it was who she was. That's the way she wanted to live and what she wanted. She wanted to take care of everybody. That was her thing. For me, I didn't know her that well. I met her that same day I met Jack David. I'd known
Sure.
Jack Nance up in San Francisco. He'd come up and done a show. But we were kind of like cousins in a large theatrical family, if you will.
Yeah.
No, you see, you have cousins that
Oh
you
yeah.
may three or
Yeah, they're
four.
family, but you don't see them very often.
Yeah, maybe every few years you hear
Yeah.
they do something really stupid or really great.
Right.
You hear about it. Did you hear what cousin Wilbur did?
Yep.
Shit, you know. But other than that, and that's what they were. Way it was. She was very influential, though. When we wanted to do the film with David about Jack Nance, we wanted to do
Yeah.
David Presents. I don't know Jack. Um, Catherine was essential for making that happen, and helped us sort of set the parameters and the tone for it as well, which I appreciated. And when David, 2 years after that time when I told him all about being an evil magician and gave him swing music to listen to, uh, one day, it happened to me on my birthday, believe it or not. I get a call from Catherine at about 7, 8 o'clock at night. I'm about to go out to a seminar about independent filmmaking or something, right?
Yeah.
Hoax or somebody like that. And um, Catherine calls looking for Donna, who's, her close friend and my producer and my close friend. And the next morning, so I give her Donna's new cell phone number. And the next morning I come in and I say to Donna, so what did Catherine call about? Was it about the documentary that we want David to
Yeah.
help with? Was something going on? Do I need to know about? And she said, David called her in Oregon and he's looking for somebody who was we all used to know, who was really good with words and used to be a magician. And I swear to you, I sat in my office with Frankie, who later stole our tapes, and Donna, who was just wonderful to the day she died. And we could not figure out who the hell it was. Just had nobody could figure out who it was. And then I remember telling them about the evil magician.
Yep.
And I said, well, maybe it could be me. And they were like flipping out, of course. And I'm going, nah, that's like not. And then 3 hours later, he called, and that was the conversation I told about later.
That's amazing.
It's,
That's amazing.
And we would run into each other in places, right?
Yeah.
Strange places. Anyway, Catherine, the overwhelming thing that happened to me because of David's passing, we were just getting ready to release the digital version of the film. We had just finished it. We were just cleaning up rights. We were going to announce it on February 24th, which is the day that Agent Cooper drives into Twin Peaks, and it's, considered Twin Peaks Day, day after my birthday. And David passes away in January, and all of a sudden, we're getting calls from all over the country to show this film.
Yeah.
And we had never planned a theatrical release. It was all just going to be this digital,
Yeah.
We, raised 300 grand on Kickstarter, 30 days. There's an audience there that wants to see this movie. We'll find those same people and more, and we'll recoup the cost of this film, which has been 3 times what we raised. Right?
Of course.
Well, there was COVID, but there was also the fact that you don't know what you're getting into in a documentary. I didn't know what I know now, right? And I didn't know who I was going to be able to talk to. I had all the research to understand who this person was. It wasn't like you're doing Lincoln and 17 guys have already researched it and written books, and you can read the books, put a timeline together, and then say what you want to say. I had no timeline. Nobody knew it all, right? So it really took quite a while just to figure out what had happened in what order, and then to start to see what things seemed important that would have sort of what antecedents led to things later on, see the connections, and then try and tighten it down so you could just tell the real strong connecting pieces and people would get the story. And that's what we did over the miniseries version, which I think you asked me if it would ever be released, and we hope to. It depends on how successful this is. If people want more, which I suspect that they will.
Oh, I think they will.
After every Q&A, they're asking about it, and I'm saying, yeah, there's more, and I want to do a Patreon campaign at some point, which would allow people to watch the whole interview, because there's stuff that I talked about with Kyle that's wonderful and fascinating, but there's not going to make it in the movie about Catherine because it's really not about Catherine. It's about life or something that Kyle is expressing. And I think people should see those whole interviews. So we may do a Patreon and give people the
I hope you do.
that. It would be fun. I will invite you to it as soon as we get
Yeah,
one.
please do. Please do.
It'll be a little
That'd
bit
be
of a while
amazing.
because there's so much to do right now just to spread the word about this film. Um,
Well, and I appreciate you coming on and talking about it, Richard. This has been terrific, and I'm so excited to watch it. The reason my son and I started this podcast is because we were just fans, nerds, and Twin Peaks has always been one of my obsessions, I guess. So I love it. I love that all this is happening. I wish that everybody was still with us,
oh, me too.
but because I think it'd be an exciting time, if everybody was still here, and we'd still be getting new things with Twin Peaks. But let's not be greedy because
Well,
it's pretty amazing the way it is.
David talks about that in the movie, as far as he's concerned, nobody really disappears.
Yeah,
you know,
exactly right.
which, that one of the wonderful experiences for me making, I mean, this film definitely changed my life in almost every aspect, just because it made me see things in different ways. I started meditating for one thing, which I've found a really useful tool just to be able to deal with everyday craziness.
Yeah.
And we are living in a world which is increasingly crazy every
Yes.
day. Whichever side you're on, whichever side you're on of the political spectrum, it doesn't feel stable, right?
No,
Crazy.
that's why all of us are upset.
Exactly. And that one of the things that I think the film emphasizes in some ways is that we're all the same. We're all one. We're all different expressions of these same, elements and DNA and attitudes and culture. You come from a different place than I do, a different generation than I do, different experience than I do. But we both know what it's like to have a kid, and we both know what it's like to have a dream, and we both know what it's like to sometimes accomplish that dream, and we both know what it's like, how fucking much work it takes to maintain it.
Absolutely.
How much pressure you think that when success in something comes, the pressure's less. We have been, from my own lights, extraordinarily successful with this film thus far. Without asking for it and looking for it, we played in over 80 screens across the country. And that gave me the opportunity to do something which I didn't think I was going to ever have, which was to sit with an audience and watch it with an audience.
Yeah.
And feel the things, the thing that made me laugh, that I spent 3 days cutting that little part so that it felt just like it did when I first made me laugh, right? There's 100,000 decisions that go into every minute of film.
Yeah.
And, to sit with an audience and, wow, that landed. You don't know. Mark Frost talks about that. The first time they ever saw Twin Peaks live with an audience was at the Directors Guild screening that they did for cast and crew. They had no idea what the laughs were. And it surprised the hell out of them when the Log Lady got laughs, when everybody got who she was so quickly. Yeah. And it's those discoveries, that they're what make conversations interesting, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Richard, thank you so much. It's been, there's so much more we can talk about. You're going to have to come back. Maybe we can do an update after it's been out for a little bit and see how it's going.
I would enjoy that, but I would ask that you let me ask you a couple of questions, because I've been having this great conversation with a really intelligent, interesting being at the other end of the screen, and I didn't get to ask you about your life, and I want to know your stuff.
Well, yeah, you can ask anything you want, of course.
Well, next time next time let me interview you.
We'll dive into it.
Love it.
Put me under the mic or the spotlight.
Yes. Well, the mic is true. It is the mic is the spotlight, right?
Yeah. Well, and we didn't really get into your acting, but I wanted to throw a few things out there with you, because you were on several of the shows that I was just crazy about growing up. I was a huge Hill Street Blues fan.
Oh, yeah.
And St. Elsewhere was another one that was just I absolutely loved. But the two I really wanted to mention was My mother had, when I was growing up, she had crushes on two actors. One was Martin Milner,
Oh, wow.
who was on Adam 12. And I know you did an episode of the new Adam 12 that came out in the 90s. So I wanted to mention that. And then her other big obsession was Jan Michael Vincent, and you
Yeah.
on Airwolf as well.
Airwolf.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
Tragic.
that one kind of amused me because I was like, you were on both those, had a connection there to people she
You,
really loved.
are you aware, you probably are, aware of the connection between Mark Frost, the co-creator of Twin Peaks,
Yeah.
Hill Street Blues?
No, I don't know.
So when I flew to Florida, I was trying to save money, so I flew to Florida. Chris Hill, Napoleon Bonaparte, big, wonderful cinematographer and wonderful Twin Peaks fan. He met me at the airport, and we went over to Mark Frost's abandoned house. It wasn't abandoned, but it was nobody was living there, right?
Right.
Interview Mark Frost. I brought with me my residual check from my role on Hill Street Blues. You get like the first time they air it, you're paid, you do the job, they pay you, they air it. When they air it again that summer as a rerun in those days, you got
Yep.
the same amount of money again. And then every time they sell it to a new market and it's on, you get a little less every time, every
Right.
new market over the years. So I think I had a 27-cent check from Mark Frost wrote that episode.
Really?
Frost was Stephen Bochco's protege. I think it was out of Carnegie Mellon. He came. I
I
could be wrong
didn't
about
know that.
that. And he learned structure, multi-character structure over a series arc, right?
Yep.
That's what Hill Street Blues innovated.
Yeah.
It took daytime soap opera multi-character structure over an arc, brought it into nighttime television, made it real, made it not just about, betrayal and romance, but about subjects,
Yeah.
and Hill Street Blues. And Mark Frost then hooked up with, Mr. Very particular point of view of the world, Lynch, and they created Twin Peaks. And the reason that I believe Twin Peaks worked so well had a great deal to do with Frost's ability to structure, tie stories together, and his great interest in Carl Jung and the Big Red Book and all things that we can't explain away, the things that lead us
I'm
to,
so glad I brought that up because that's a terrific connection.
yes. You
Yeah,
should
that's
have Mark
great.
Frost on. He is a wonderful interview. He's just a really interesting, very eloquent
Oh,
cat.
I'll try to do that. Yeah. Yeah, I'd love to speak with him. That's awesome. Before we wrap up, Richard, and you have to come back.
I will.
This has been terrific. Um, where can we find the movie? Where can we watch it if we want to watch it?
You can watch the only place you can watch it, besides some limited indie theaters around the world that are calling us up and we're saying, yeah, sure, why not?
Sure, why not?
We launched yesterday. You go to iknowcatherine.com, Catherine with a C, iknowcatherine.com. It's very easy. You just click and buy. It's a unlimited streaming. You can stream it anytime you want. It's
Oh,
a
that's great.
$20 unlimited streaming, unlimited download. And I think there's trailers out there. You can check out, Log Lady Film on
Oh yeah,
Instagram.
yeah, yeah, yeah. The trailers look great. I'm excited to see the movie. It'll be a blast.
Absolutely.
We'll probably watch it this weekend. We'll do it here at the studio, and I'll invite some of the family over to
I
watch.
love it. I love it. I hope you enjoy it. It's been a wonderful experience for me to spend, essentially 7.5, 8 years
Right.
with these people talking about these subjects. They're
Yes.
important subjects, life and death and children and love and betrayal and, art. These are all important things to all of us. And these are incredible. You figure, David Lynch is an interesting guy. He's an
Sure.
eloquent guy. He's a great storyteller, as you'll see. So is Catherine. But, all of their friends have much of that in common. Many of them are theater and film people, Pulitzer Prize winning playwrights, playwrights that are on Broadway right now with Real Women Have Curves, just
Yep.
exceptional people want to hang out with exceptional people. And these people found each other, and many of them connected through Catherine, who was an exceptional connector of people and appreciator of people. And in the end of her life, all of this that she had given, all of the support, all of the interest, all of the attention came back to her. It's as Timmy says in the movie, like a bank account. And they came together to help her accomplish something that was, frankly, if you sat and asked somebody about it, they'd think you were crazy that anybody would try and do this, that they would put this together. It's a documentary, but it's got some incredibly interesting music, jazz and blues and original compositions for the film, original songs for the film. And it helps you enter, as music does, this world of Catherine, which was these many worlds together. I've been fascinated for now 10 years, actively playing with this world and trying to tell the story for 8 years. And I can tell you that I sat in numerous theaters across the country with audiences, and I had the same experience that I had when I first started hearing about this. I'm moved and inspired by these
Love
people
that.
and this story. And if I am, after so long, it
Right.
shouldn't surprise me that the people that I'm watching it with are feeling the same way. Laughter, tears, laughter.
Love that. Yeah. Thank you, Richard. This has been terrific. I can't wait to watch the movie, and I'll take some pictures when we have the group and send to you.
I would love it. I'm sending Jane. We'll send him this link. We're sending you the link
Oh, terrific. Thank you.
momentarily. It's there, please.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Terrific. And we'll do this again, sir. It's been,
Okay.
before I let you go, are you on social media? Where can we find you?
Yes. So do I know even all of our social media? Log Lady Film for sure on Instagram. And gosh, I should have this. Huh? The links are on the website. Thank you, Jane.
Oh,
Just
perfect.
I know,
Yeah,
Catherine, all of the social media links are there. There's also a way to sign up to get in more information. There's an incredible shop. There's some incredible graphics in this film. All I'm going to tell you is when you have me on next time,
yeah.
I will tell you the story of how these incredibly interesting black background paintings and drawings
Yeah.
came to be and what it has to do with the war in the Ukraine.
Oh, okay. That's a good teaser.
Good.
All right, sir. Hold on one second. Well, how terrific was that? Richard Green. The movie is I Know Catherine the Log Lady, or documentary. It's out now, so definitely do yourself a favor. Go get it. Go watch it. You're gonna love it. Twin Peaks. It's a very culty community. However, it's a great one. The people you meet, by and large, just fantastic. They're just good people. And I always love going to conventions and talking with other fans of the show because they're always just great. They're just fans, and we can share something that we love. We don't have to get into the politics or anything like that, and just enjoy. Love it. Richard obviously has put a lot of time and passion into this project. I can't wait to watch it. We will definitely bring Richard back. There's so much more we could talk about, and he's terrific. What a storyteller. Yeah, just terrific. If you enjoyed this, I got good news for you. We've had Sherilyn Fenn on. We've had Sabrina Strasser. Good friend of mine, Walter Oakowitz, was in Twin Peaks, and he passed not too long after the third season came back. And David Lynch was very similar to what he did with Catherine. He had, Walter was bedridden, and David had to work around that to include him in the film. He was one of the bartender brothers. So big fan. But I've had all of those interviews or all of those people on the podcast that if you're a fan, definitely check those out. Sherilyn Finn, I got to work with her on a project that we produced called The Last Saturday Night. Walter and I became very good friends. I've been out to his house before he passed, and met with Walter. And then we've had others connected with Twin Peaks. So please definitely check that out. If you would like to know more about us and what we do, our YouTube channel is MeisterCon Pod. Please subscribe. It's free. It really helps us out. Our website's meistercon.com. You can find over 1,000 episodes on there, audio and video versions. So please check us out, meistercon.com. Thank you guys so much. Till next time. Bye, everybody.